Welcome again to our summer Zoom. We've got a few of our rising N2s on today who are gonna talk a little bit kind of a day in the life, how they prepare, how they study. I maintain that none of y'all need to be studying or doing anything right now. You need to be enjoying your summer and having a good time. But this might sometimes you have family members who are like, oh, I want to get you a graduation gift or something like that. What can you get me? They may have some ideas on ways that they study or study tips, like an Anki remote. I've heard about that more than anyone should ever hear about anything. And that they may have to talk to you guys about things that are helpful that you could go ahead and get to prepare for starting. So I hope everybody's having a good summer so far. I personally just got back from Colorado. It was beautiful. There was zero humidity and mosquitoes, which was super nice. That is not the case in Little Rock right now. So probably not the case in Northwest Arkansas either, Lauren, I imagine. Nope. But anyway, we got our pluses. It's just our minuses are mosquitoes. So, all right, Robert, I'm going to pass it off to you and let you get things started if that's okay.
Perfect. All right. Can everyone hear me? Am I good? Okay, cool. And then we're recording. So I see the recording sign, which is good. All right. So yeah, I'm gonna start sharing my screen and we're gonna go through this presentation about um uh kind of med school in real life. All right. Does this work? Does everyone see this? Okay, cool. So this is kind of a brief kind of overview over the summer of like how med school works, like in real life, not Um, kind of, I feel like in your head before med school, you're probably thinking about a bunch of things. You probably watch a bunch of TikToks and Instagram reels about all these medfluencers, about what they do in their life. And some of it's helpful and some of it is kind of not. So this is kind of like to give you more of like coming from real people, people who are in the same program you're about to start, what they do, and kind of an overview also of the very first class that y'all are going to take. So first up is Kate. So Kate, take it away.
Thank you, Robert. Very
Oh,
kind. Oh, thanks. Yep. Okay, so if you're anything like me, I really didn't know much about med school before I got here. So, day in the life is we have a lot less required activities than I initially thought we did. But I wake up in the morning around 7 or 8, eat breakfast, pack lunch, head to school. If we have required events in the morning, which anatomy, which Robert will talk about, you do have required events all morning. And then I eat lunch at the school. Bonus if it's with friends. This is a non-negotiable for my day. And I'll usually stay and either study in the library for a few hours, or we have an afternoon required activity, which could be POM, which we'll talk about later in this presentation. That's practice of medicine. So we work with standardized patients and learn how to do the doctoring part of medicine. We also might have an ultrasound session. And then I leave for the day and I work out or take a walk, do something where I'm moving my body, play tennis. I'm always looking for tennis buddies if anyone out there plays tennis. And then I make dinner, read, watch a show, do something fun. And if I am reviewing content in the evening when I get back, I give myself a hard cutoff because I know that I do not retain things if I study too late in the day. And then I go to bed, usually 10 or 11. And obviously, this day looks a lot different if it's a test week. The week or so before a test, I'm at the school a lot more. I'm having bigger chunks of study time. And also, my schedule looked really different as we have different classes because there's different requirements. And so I know that that's not very helpful because it's very general, but you just have to learn how to be flexible and be okay having some slight variations in your days based on what class is next. I like to tell people that med school is very choose your own adventure, and you have a lot more free time than people might tell you that you do. It's free time that you obviously have to use studying and doing things, but it is time that you get to choose how you use it. Okay, so my study tips. I am not an Anki person. That's going to be my big stipulation that I got through the year really without using Anki at all. That last bullet point you see, I did use Anki during anatomy because I was kind of testing with how I like to study. And I just honestly ended up getting more frustrated with Anki than I felt like it actually benefited me. And I think I kind of ended up using it to learn the concepts instead of studying. And so after anatomy, I really switched and I've enjoyed not using Anki and have been successful the rest of the year without it. And so, because of that, the biggest thing that I use to study is practice questions. You're going to get a ton of them when you start anatomy or human structure. You're going to get a ton of practice questions. And as the classes go on and you start taking board style exams, which is in BME style questions, there's a lot of third party resources. And I spend a lot of my time doing practice questions. I also look at information in roughly 3 to 4 different ways. So, using the class PowerPoints, the lecture, listening or attending the lectures live and in person, using third party resources, which I'm not really going to talk about the nitty gritty of those because you'll get there later. And honestly, when I was in your shoes, I would have been overwhelmed if I started throwing out words like sketchy and RX bricks. I answer a lot of practice questions. I write a lot of lesson learned journals. And so I just kind of like keep a running tab of, okay, I learned this tidbit when I was answering a question, or this is why I got this question wrong, and like making note of those things. I also like to watch a lot of YouTube videos. So I kind of have both reading and watching. So if you're a visual learner too, I kind of get all those in. Another tip that I have is to apply what you're learning to clinic scenarios. And I know that can seem really hard when we're in the first 2 years in the kind of preclinical phase. But volunteering at 12th Street in Harmony is already going to teach you clinical uses for your information, even if you don't quite know what you're getting into. Another tip I have is to shadow physicians that match the content of the organ-based modules that you're currently in. So maybe shadowing an allergist during disease and defense, or a psychiatrist or a neurologist when we're in brain and behavior. Doing those things really helped me at least say, oh, okay, the stuff we're learning is so clinically relevant. And it kind of helped me get out of the details and look at the bigger picture. I think that's all I have on that one, Robert. Perfect. Okay. Survival tips that aren't study tips. Please keep a life outside of med school. I beg, hang out with your friends, keep up with hobbies, maybe learn a new hobby. Go to an antique store. That's a personal one. If you want to know any antique wrecks in Little Rock, I've got you. Start to come to terms with the idea that the way you do school will look really different than your best friend or your friend group, and that's okay. The way that I do school is different than the way that Robert does school, but we've both loved med school and been super successful. And so it's okay. You just kind of have to find what works for you, which I know again is kind of esoteric and maybe not helpful, but that's just the way it is we all do it really differently. And ask for help when you need it. Tutoring was super helpful for me. I did big group tutoring and one-on-one tutoring, and both were helpful. Enjoy what you're learning. I talk to my parents a lot and talk to my non-med school friends and tell them about stuff I'm learning. And that also helps me learn it better if I'm explaining it in layman's terms to someone else. There can be a lot to complain about if you let yourself, but no matter the professor or the class, there are amazing things that we get to learn about every day. The human body is really, really incredible and super fun to learn about. Put things on your Google Calendar to look forward to after tests. I love when we finish a test and everyone comes out of the woodworks and they're ready to play and they're ready to do something. And so it really kind of gives you that extra little bit of extrinsic motivation when you finish a test. My last tip is that I really like to keep my work and life separate by doing the bulk of my studying away from my house. So that way, when I came back to my house, it actually felt restful and I could do things that weren't studying and be okay. And so to that end, I really like studying on campus in our library. The public library system is really great here, and coffee shops. That's an unashamed plug for Fidel. I think it's the best coffee shop here. My last insider tip is that you can study upstairs in the Museum of Fine Arts for free, and there's free Wi-Fi, and you get to look out over the landscape, and it's pretty. Anyways. Okay, almost done. Some final thoughts, but Dr. Latch said this too. Please don't study right now. There's plenty of time for that in August, and yeah, there's nothing that you could do right now that would give you a major leg up, I guess, to everyone else. when I started last year, I think I said this at the beginning, but I really didn't know much about med school or what to expect or any of the resource names. I was not reading Reddit or Student Doctor Network, anything like that. And so when I got here, I was super overwhelmed with how many resources there were and how you could use them in all these different kinds of combinations. And so my tip is to try a method for a week or two. And if it's not working by the end of the week, you maybe aren't getting as many questions right, or you don't feel like you could regurgitate the information as well as you think you could, then switch and do something slightly different. And you will land on something that works for you. I really feel like by the time I got to brain and behavior, okay, I had figured out this is the way that I study best and kind of stuck with that. But it just takes some trial and error. Also, sign up to have an M2 mentor and ask that person as many questions as you can think of. I relied a lot on M2s to just kind of help walk me through things, to kind of be a sounding board for, hey, was this helpful for you? What do you think about this? Those kinds of things. So, yeah, work hard, ask for help, seek new opportunities, and you will have plenty of time in the week to do non-medical things. And it's super fun. I love being here in med school. Text me if you need anything, have questions. Literally, if you want some restaurant recs, I'm very passionate about those. So there's my phone number. You can also email me. Happy to chat, truly.
Yes, thank you, Kate. Kate's awesome. And yeah, Kate's kind of one of the people in our class who doesn't use Anki, and so kind of getting a perspective from her of like study tips and how that works. Sorry, I probably should have introduced Kate before, but yeah, someone that like this is
Yes,
Kate
my
Lester.
name is Kate Lester. I don't use Anki, and I love med school.
Boom. And yeah, an M2 mentor is something that we do over the summer. And so we're going to be sending out more information in Yale's group me and over email about how to sign up. There's going to be a Google Sheet that you'll sign up for soon. So that's going to be coming soon too. So there you go. Okay, sorry. No, I'm going back. All right, and this is Lauren. So if y'all who were in the Northwest campus last meeting, probably know Lauren pretty well because she was talking to y'all about Fayetteville, Northwest Arkansas. But she's here as someone to talk to you about studying and a day in the life kind of what she did as someone who uses Anki in kind of their studying habits. So take it away, Lauren.
Hi, everybody. Yes, so I'm Lauren. I'm an M1, or now I'm an M2, at the Fayetteville campus. So, but if anybody has any questions for me, I don't care what campus you're on, you're more than welcome to ask. So first thing I kind of wanted to talk through is what is Anki. I know it's kind of a word that if you're in the med school space at all, or like on Reddit or anything like that, you've probably heard of it. Some people use it for the MCAT. Some people don't, and they use it for the first time in med school. I did try to download it for the MCAT, but I mean, a lot of people don't. In the Google Drive, there's a fantastic, really long document about how to set it up, what to download, even like suggested settings. If you're going to do anything this summer, like the week of orientation, maybe look at that just so you're not overwhelmed beforehand, but don't try to study with it. Just maybe like make sure the program works on your computer if it's something you're interested in trying. And then like Dr. Latch said at the beginning, I love my Anki remote. It goes everywhere with me. It makes reviews a lot faster and easier. It lets me do it like while I'm on like my walking pad or something like that. So highly recommend at least giving it a go for anatomy, and then you can decide if you like Anki or not afterwards. Okay, and then why I continue to use Anki after anatomy, because I do feel like most people try it in anatomy because it is so memorization based. But then afterwards, like Kate said, you don't have to necessarily use it. I did continue to use it through all my courses because it let me just like not even think about what I had to review that day. I'm somebody that will get into like a to-do list paralysis if I'm trying to think of like what things I need to go back and look at. And so it just kind of took one thing off my plate by having a computer program tell me what I needed to review. So Anki is spaced repetition, and the like science behind it is it's supposed to help you move information into your long-term memory. But again, it was really just something that I could add to my system. So this just kind of helped me look through cards, even from previous classes sometimes, that I wanted to make sure I was retaining. That way, like if we had a cumulative final or even for like future classes, I was still able to remember some of that older material. So that's why I chose to use it. Okay, and then my typical study schedule changed a lot after anatomy, and I'll kind of explain why. So, for me, I will admit, like to anybody, that I am a crazy morning person. So, lecture usually started at 8, and I did have things that I tried to do before lecture, just so that the first time I was hearing information was not when I was sitting in lecture. But that's my personal preference. A lot of people don't do that. But for me, what I would do is I would complete my Anki reviews before lecture, and then I also tried to preview all the material I was going to hear in lecture. So I use noted anatomists videos. You guys will hear this information again, and you don't need to start worrying about that now. But that was my favorite resource. And then I usually watched lecture and then lab, and I would add the new Anki cards for that day. After that, I just kind of made sure I felt really solid on what the lecture was covering. And then I would do those new Anki cards. And then, like Kate said, practice questions are kind of the key to med school for me. You'll hear all these resource names again. I just wanted to use the specifics in case you look back on this later when you're in anatomy. You don't need to worry about what Gray's Anatomy is right now or Texas Tech or Tank Bank. But this is just kind of an example of the fact that you'll have so many practice questions. For me, because I started my days really early, I got to end my day early. And then I usually had afternoons or evenings just to myself to like spend time with friends or do things like that. So anatomy is really what you make it, but you do need to decide when you're going to be done because you can work as long as you want. But yeah. And then when we moved out of anatomy, the key difference between anatomy and post-anatomy courses is that in anatomy, you are required to be on campus every day for a lecture and lab. And then after anatomy is over, you don't have to watch lecture live or in person. Fayetteville students watch them on Zoom regardless. So you can watch them on Zoom in a classroom with everybody else, or you can watch them afterwards. I usually watch mine on 2 times speed. And that just kind of gave my schedule a little bit more flexibility. So again, Anki was the first thing I did every single day. And then I usually watched lectures on 2 times speed. These are some of the supplemental resources I used. These were all provided either by UAMS or were free online. So I didn't end up spending any money on like external resources. And again, I'm just throwing these in there for you guys down the road when you hear these words again so that you can like remember, oh my gosh, I've heard of this before, but you don't need to worry about this right now. And then I would do the new Anki for the day and I did practice questions. So for me, like I said earlier, Anki was a great way for me to make sure I had heard of every single term. A lot of times I would get to my like new Anki cards and it might be something that I felt like I had never heard of before. So then I was able to like pause, go find it in the notes, remind myself like what our professor had told us that day about that topic. And it was just kind of a good way for me to make sure I didn't miss anything. And then yeah, like Kate said, I had a lot of non-negotiables for myself. I really wanted to like prioritize taking care of myself during med school, taking afternoons off after like quizzes or exams. I love med school so much. It's been one of my biggest blessings in my life, but at the same time, it is not my whole life. And I think that that really makes me more successful as a student, that I have things going on outside of med school. So I really tried to make sure that nothing kind of got in the way of that. Um, because yes, med school is super important, but it isn't my entire life. I would also like to add that not every student has to be super type A. Like I'm a very type A student, but one of my best friends and classmates, Spencer, her mantra for studying is it doesn't matter when it gets done, just as long as it gets done. So you can be really flexible with your schedule. Just whatever you do, you should stick with, and that's kind of the biggest takeaway that I would want you guys to have. Oh yeah, I said that. Yes, the best study system is the one you can consistently stick with for an entire year. That doesn't mean you can't change a little bit, but once you find something that works for you, It will be different than what your friends do, and that's totally okay. The biggest like piece of advice I can give is once you find something that works, like don't compare with other people because you will get stuck in like decision paralysis and trying to do too many methods is just going to make you overwhelmed and overworked. So stick with one, and feel confident that it's the best. You can always pivot after like an exam or something, but I would just try to pick a course and stick to it.
Sorry, I'm trying to unmute myself. Okay. Hey, it's Robert again. Shout out to Lauren. Lauren's awesome. And all those memes I will disclose are from me because I love memes. So Lauren did not put those memes in there. All those Shaq photos, I love Shaquille O'Neal, so I put him in there. Um, Kate's slides were a little too filled. I couldn't fit any memes in there. I tried, but Lauren,
Mr.
I
President.
have to say, I was like, wow, Lauren is a Shaq fan. I had no idea.
I mean, look at him.
My
He does
alter
everything that you
ego.
want. Look at this. He reads, he eats with his friends, he does the one chip challenge, he sleeps.
He's got it going on for sure.
I love Shaq. Okay. I'm talking next about more kind of logistic stuff and stuff about your first course that you're going to deal with when you get here, just kind of give you like a brief glimpse. So let's go into that. So, um, a little bit more about what you're going to be dealing with parking wise. We talked about it last meeting, but just to like reinforce parking, buses are really great at UMS. There's a great app. So, most of the time we park at War Memorial. It's free, hashtag free. I love free. And so you park at War Memorial in the morning if you're going to lecture. And so for anatomy, you're going to be going to lecture and lab. So, and classes start at 8. So for me, I would usually go to War Memorial around 7, trying to be there by 7:30. Um, so then I can go to lecture and like sit down and be ready before lecture starts like 10 minutes before so I can like prepare myself. But everyone's different. Some people would walk in like right when it started and and they were successful too. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it. But at around 7:30, I would park at War Memorial and I would usually take the bus. The War Memorial Express is the main bus that we use. It's like really the only bus that's running that morning. So if it's from 7 to 8, you go take the bus. That's the only bus. So you'll hop on the shuttle, and this is um, the route it takes in the morning. So like right here is War Memorial, where it's looping around the parking lot where there's 3 stops. And then it takes you straight to the medical center and where your classes are in Ron or ED2. And so it's pretty fast because it's a pretty short route. So if you like get there, you wait 7, 8 minutes, the next bus is going to be there. So you can do that, or you can also walk. And so over here on the right is a walking route that I usually take. I actually stopped taking the bus because I like to walk in the morning too. So around like halfway through anatomy, I just started walking because I was like, "Ah, I get fresh air. I'm gonna be in the anatomy lab in the basement for the next 3 hours, so might as well get some air while I can." So this is that little red route where you start at War Memorial Stadium, and then over time you just slowly walk through. There's a little walking path, and usually if you get there at 7:30, there's kind of a mass migration of students doing this route. So like you kind of figure out where you go and how you walk there. And so um, you just kind of walk with everyone else, walk to the med center. And on the next slide, I have some photos to kind of help guide you. But also during orientation week, there'll be people there in War Memorial helping you get to the right place because it can be confusing your first week. So there's going to be a bunch of people helping you during orientation week. So don't be too stressed. This is not something to stress about. Ray Winder is Winder. I know I said it wrong last time. Ray Winder is the other overflow, which is very rare. You have to park there. It's like if War Memorial is being used for something, which has like happened like 3 times in the past year that we were in our M1 year, you can park at Ray Winder, and there's another bus shuttle, or you can walk to from there. There's also a website called umsbus.com, which is awesome. And it literally shows you exactly where the bus is at that current moment. And so you can track it. So usually if I'm in the hospital and I'm walking back to War Memorial, I'll like hop on the app. And if the bus is really close, then I'll just wait for the bus. But if it's far away, then I'll just walk. So yeah. So this is like another map of kind of from War Memorial. So on the side facing UAMS, there's this big parking lot from Monroe Street that you just kind of turn into. You really can't miss it. There's a bunch of cars there, and you just a huge parking lot. There's 3 bus stops, and there's some photos here. Next. And then if you park there and you turn right here where the star is, for the shining spinning star is, some magical beacon in the distance, not very distance, pretty close, shines at you. And if you walk towards the UAMS giant tower, eventually you'll get to your destination. So this beacon there, facing east, the eastward star, that's where you're going. Okay, so this is also War Memorial. So this is the giant kind of facade that's on the front, and this is a parking lot. Found these photos online, and they're pretty old photos, but it still looks the exact same today. So if you take this, you park here, you'll get there. Okay, so that was parking in shuttles and buses. Now I'm here to talk about human structure, the course explained, aka how the heck does this class even work? We kind of gave you some like Kate and Lauren talked about how this class is pretty different from kind of the rest of the first 2 years of medical school, where this class has kind of a lab part attached to it. And so how does a lab work when you're also getting lectured at? Is kind of can be kind of hard, but it being the first class is kind of helpful because then once you're done with it, you're kind of done and you can kind of move on and start kind of the rest of the didactics. So here's human structure, anatomy explained. Here's more memes. Okay, sorry. So also called anatomy is what most students just call it. This is your first introduction to medical school, but it's pretty different, like I was saying. So you have in-person lecture, which is mandatory, and you also have lab. And so usually, I'm gonna have a schedule in the next slide, but usually you go for like an hour lecture in the morning at 8 a.m. and then whoever the professor is that day says, all right, time for break. Go downstairs to the basement. Everyone walks together and go change. And now we're gonna start the dissection. So you're gonna start the dissection with in the lab with your group, and that's kind of the next 2 to 3 hours of your day until noon. And so once noon, you're done for the day. You got to go study, get some lunch, and then yeah, that's kind of how the structure of human structure works. It's also different in my opinion because it's a lot, mostly just memorization, which is why even Kate said that Anki was something she kind of used at first too in anatomy. It's because a lot of anatomy is just memorizing the human body. There's not much getting around that. And so it's just kind of different in that there's very few conceptual things you have to learn in anatomy. A lot of it is just knowing the structure, knowing this artery. And some students like that, some students don't. There's also the dissection that we have. And so your groups of 5, and over time you slowly together kind of uncover the human body. It's a pretty uh, something that I took away from anatomy as something that was very meaningful to me. I became closer with, I guess, my human nature. I found parts of me I hadn't ever thought about before. And I got really close with a bunch of people in my class through anatomy lab. And so I was some person who was actually pretty scared about it because obviously it's kind of scary to dissect a human body or human cadaver, someone who's donated their body for this. But it was something that I found very honoring to the history and legacy of medicine, something that I'll keep with me forever and never forget. You also have exams because it's a class. But the different thing is you also have practicals, which are these in-person kind of second exams right after your exam where you look at structures and you have to identify them of little pinned things, which sounds scary. I was really scared of, but most of the time it isn't actually as bad as you think. I didn't ever thought the practicals were that um, not bad, but they weren't as scary as I thought they were. They do a lot. The teachers really want you to succeed and really help you throughout, which you don't realize, but they say things when you're in anatomy lab that you're like, oh, okay, I never thought about before. And then when you're in practical, you're like, oh my gosh, like I remember that they said this one thing and this is it. So they do help you a lot. And They want you to succeed. So some highlights of anatomy. So it's 9 weeks long, give or take. So it's a perfect amount of time to savor it if you love it. Some people in our class loved anatomy, or it's just short enough where you can get it over with and move on. So you got 3 exams, 3 in-person practicals, and yeah, you just kind of do it 9 weeks long. You can break it up into kind of like 3 weeks if you like. If you really like it, like I actually really liked anatomy. It's kind of one of the longer courses, but 9 weeks in the grand scheme of things of your whole life is really not that long. So if you think about it in that way, you can kind of get over it and just move on to the next class. Hashtag squad. You work in groups of 5 to kind of like dissect and learn the intricacies of the human body. Get really close with a bunch of people. It's kind of like throwing you in the fire and saying, all right, let's go, let's make friendships, let's meet people, and all do this together. You get really close, and there's also awesome teachers. You have built-in TAs who are upper level med students called anatomical scholars who are there to kind of help you and guide you and give you a bunch of advice and kind of tutor you in lab, and they help you a lot. And also the faculty for anatomy are actually the best. Like I love all of them, and they are really, really, really good teachers. And they make it not seem as bad. And here's another meme of if you like to make your own PC or a big computer person who likes to geek out about wire for being really controlled with your wires is kind of a funny check. Okay, sorry. All right, so this is also something I pulled off of O2. This is kind of a schedule that you might have during your week. So I think this is like this is the first week. So on Monday, which is that first column, you go in, that first tab is what they post in the more early morning hours. It's not an actual class. It's just, hey, this is kind of the content that we'll be talking about today. If you want to, you can pre-read it from the textbook, which you don't have to do. But if you are a reader who likes to read through visual learning, then you might want to read the textbook before the lecture. I never did, and I was fine. But if you do, you can. They give you the content. And then, all right, well, we have lecture for an hour about introduction of the section lab. Okay, let's talk for an hour. Let's all learn what we're going to be doing in this next lab. And they say break, and you go to lab for around 2 hours. The first day you have a reflection afterwards, and then, oh, I'm free for the rest of the day. Yay. Let me go study or go hang out with my new friends I just met, or I don't know, go ride my bike, go run, do whatever you want. Second day, same thing. You have lecture for an hour, lab for around 2 hours till noon. And then there's something called Palm, which is a hint to something I'm going to be talking about next slide. But okay, I have an hour break for lunch. Let's go get lunch with my lab mates, with my new friends. And then we go straight to Palm, called Practice of Medicine, where you kind of learn more about how to be a doctor. Hint, hint. I'm talking about next slide. And so this is kind of a day in the week, or a glimpse of your week in anatomy, where on O2 it's pretty blocked out, where it kind of tells you where you need to be, what time. So it's kind of helpful to like, kind of for people who are kind of scatterbrained like me, kind of gives you a direct time and place. So it's good for that. And then also, it kind of gives you the information of what that exact class is going to have. They give you the slides in there for that lecture where you can download to your iPad or computer and type notes on. And they'll give you your practice questions that they want you to maybe work on, which are optional, but most people do them because they help you study. So yeah, they're really well organized, and you'll understand it whenever you kind of start. So, okay, I think I'm getting it maybe, which is okay if you don't, because there's going to be a bunch of information during orientation that we're going to try and ingrain with you still. And during the first week of anatomy, there's going to be a bunch of people there to help you. But what the heck is POM? POM, Practice of Medicine. It's a year-long course where you actually learn, in my opinion, the how of being a doctor. I think the rest of medicine, the medical school in those first 2 years that we're about to do our second year is really the what. What is this disease? What is this pathology? What is the brain? What is the heart? But in practice of medicine is really the how. The how do I be a doctor? How do I talk to a patient? How do I talk to other doctors? How do I physically examine someone? This is where you really learn all of these things, how to be an ethical and moral a physician in healthcare, how to work with others, how to take and write a history. And then most importantly, it's how to think critically. I think in Palm, it's really the time where you kind of, I loved Palm. I think it's a time where you gotta kind of work on yourself, figure out what kind of doctor you want to be, and kind of take a break from the classroom, from the memorization, from the Anki, and kind of think about what you're actually in medical school for, if that makes sense. So yes, there's Avengers meme. And then just remember, there are so many people who are here to help and to support you. Dr. Latch, um, all your M2 mentors, everyone in the College of Medicine office, your M2s, your M3s, your professors, your faculty. There's so many people who are here who want to help you. And every single person at UMS took the job at UMS because I know it's a teaching hospital and they want to teach. So every single physician is here to teach. So if you email someone to shadow, they say, of course, I love this. I want to teach you. So please come whenever you can. Your M2 is here who knows what shoes you've been in. So they obviously want to help you. But yeah, you get a mentor, you get friends. That's something that you kind of forget sometimes is that your friends are also here to support you. Your friends, when you hang out with your friends, whether you think about it or not, that's your friends supporting you by hanging out with you and giving you free time and giving you things to do. So yeah, there's so much support in medical school, and that's kind of a key in your success is finding the people who can help you whenever you need it and not being afraid to ask. So here's Oprah too. So and you also make, like I said, amazing friendships. We all have awesome friends. Med school, the friendships you make in med school are friends that I think are some of the strongest I've ever made. You just, it's kind of not trauma bonding, but is somewhat a little bit of trauma bonding where you just, you're in something that's hard. It's not easy to become a doctor. And so you're doing this with a bunch of people who are going through the same thing. And so you can have friends where you don't even talk about medicine. You say, I don't even want to talk about today. Let's just go, I don't know, let's watch the football game. Let's play some video games. Let's go play some tennis or pickleball. You can have friends where you can like talk about the class for the day and say, oh my gosh, like what is going on? And then you can talk about that. There's so many things you can do. And here's some of our photos. So stay tuned because soon you're gonna have your own photos to show your family and friends and everyone around you about how awesome medical school is. So yes. And now it's time for questions. So you're going to have a lot more information about human structure, obviously, how to study. There's going to be a bunch of stuff posted in the email to you about the Google Drive for your class, about resources like that Kate and Lauren were talking about, like textbooks, ways that like videos, Anki decks, things that have been pre-made that are here to help you succeed. And so that's going to be sent out to you soon. There's going to be mentor sign up where we're going to be asking you guys to fill a Google form and we'll pair you with a mentor. And there's just going to be a lot more information. So I picked this meme because if you watch Men in Black, you probably just got a bunch of information thrown at you that you probably might forget, but that's okay because we're always here for you. So yeah.
And we're going to say it all over again multiple times.
Yeah. Yes, we say it a lot.
Kate, I saw you unmuted. Were you going to answer the question in the chat?
Yes, ma'am, I was. So the professors don't hold office hours consistently, but you can meet with them and email them at any time, and they'll set up a meeting with you that works with your schedule. So there aren't consistent office hours like your professors maybe had in college where they said, okay, 1 to 3 on Thursday afternoons, I'm in the office. The professors here will work with you and find a time to meet with you. You can stop by their office, you can hop on a Zoom call, or you can just email them questions. And if you ever email them questions, they will compile answers that your other classmates have sent to, and they'll send it out to the whole class. So they're not trying to gatekeep helpful information. And if one person had the question, probably a lot of people had the question too. So you'll get a lot of answers to a lot of questions because they'll just send out, okay, hey, a student had this question. Here's the information from the professor to answer that.
Yeah, they're really good about, especially that part, sending the emails out of questions, and they also keep it anonymous. So if you think it's a stupid question, it does not matter. It's 100% not a stupid question, and even if you think it is, they're not going to put your name on that question when they send it out to the whole class. So it's anonymous when you email a professor a question, and they answer it
There's
also.
also a question in the chat about third-party resources and what we provide. I hate this question because Dr. Graham is in charge of that and I can't ever remember. But I do know we provide Sketchy and Pathoma. Robert, Kate, Lauren, what else do we provide?
All of the ones I'm
Um,
in, oh, sorry, go ahead, Robert.
no, go for it, Lauren.
Oh, I was just going to chime in that all of the ones that I mentioned are either free or UAMS provides. I know we provide RxBricks, Sketchy, Pathoma, and then Noted Anatomist and Dirty Medicine are YouTube videos that are totally free. So those are the ones that I primarily used. I don't know if anybody uses any other ones,
And
but
they'll roll out these resources that we get kind of one at a time. So we didn't really get any in anatomy because there's so many free resources out there. And so the ones that Lauren mentioned, Texas Tech and Tank Bank and Grey's Anatomy, those are all free kind of computer programs that are already provided. And then we get Sketchy when Molecules to Cells starts, because that's when it matters more. That's when you would actually start using it. So they kind of roll them out, and we'll even get another one when we start studying for STEP next year. So you won't get them all at once.
And
And then in addition to that, they may change depending on what the class votes for. So what the class before you got may not be what your class gets
A
for
lot of
like
the
step one and
students,
step two study.
yeah, a lot of students really like Amboss. And so we do have some students who have purchased Amboss. I think Robert's class worked on kind of a reduced price if people wanted to get Amboss. We actually provide Amboss in the M3 year. That's one of the resources that the third year clerkship directors and the third year students felt like was more helpful. So just like Jennifer said, it kind of varies according to, there's always something new coming out. But those are paid for by your student fees. And so we have this kind of whatever money we have from student fees, and we try and get as many things that we think are helpful that we can. Somebody asked about interest groups and volunteering. That's one of my favorite parts of Welcome Week is the interest group fair. So we will have that, I think, on Wednesday afternoon, where we usually we have about 80 different tables set up with interest groups or other groups who are talking about how you can get more involved in those. I would say timing wise, I kind of suggest to students from my perspective, and I'd love to hear Robert, Kate, and Lauren's perspective too, is maybe spend the first month or two just kind of understanding what you need to do to be successful from an academic standpoint. I think Kate said it really didn't take as much time as she anticipated it did. I think that is generally true for a lot of people, but there's some people who are like, oh man, this took a lot more time than I expected because everybody's different. So try and figure that out for yourself before you overwhelm yourself by getting too involved in other things. And what I see is students are like, oh, I might be interested in GI. I might be interested in ENT. I might be interested in peds. And then they sign up for a whole bunch of things. And then all of a sudden their calendar is full of things that are going on. And maybe if they just kind of step back and kind of took a breath for a little bit and saw what things are going to be like, maybe they would make different decisions. But tons of opportunities. 12th Street and Harmony here in Little Rock are our two free clinics. North Street is the free clinic in Northwest Arkansas. I do think that at some point in your M1 year when you're like, well, this is just another year at college. What am I doing? I wanted to actually see patients. It's really nice to have an opportunity to go to 12th Street or North Street or Harmony and actually get to see patients and do what you are actually coming to medical school to do to remind you of why you're doing all of these things.
Yes, yeah. I think I didn't really get involved with anything until I think anatomy was over. I think anatomy is like its own thing where I recommend you just kind of try and focus on school I mean, when you're in Little Rock, when you first start anatomy, you're so overwhelmed with everything, like not just school, but life. Living in Little Rock, figuring out your new daily schedule, your new routine. And so I think in anatomy, like just focus on school and then focus on making friends, like focus on meeting people and figuring out how you're going to live in Little Rock. We have an orientation fair, like during orientation week, where you'll see a bunch of these clubs, a bunch of these interest groups, and feel free to like sign up for the group me and like feel free to get involved in their email chain. But and so you'll be on them and they'll be there for you, but you don't have to act on the emails they send out or the group meets they send out until you feel ready. And so that's what I would recommend. Like obviously like everyone in here has been a pre-med at some point in their life and they feel like when they're pre-med they have to do 1001 different things. But I feel like in medical school now is like you're here and now it's just focusing on learning the concept and doing the things you can do for your own like mental sanity and like having good mental health and staying um like just doing the things that you need to do, which is definitely just kind of taking it slow at first.
Yeah. So,
And then oh yeah, go Kate.
oh, I was just going to answer Alexandra's question. Is that what you were going to do?
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think Robert and I sit in class together, and I think we even do different things in class. So I think, as unhelpful as it is, a lot of people do things differently. I would say I honestly don't take a ton of notes during class because I like to listen to the professor. So I have the slides pulled up, but I'm usually just trying to listen and follow along. And then I will have listened to it via my ears, auditory. And then I also try to learn the material visually and by reading too. I don't know. So I kind of like to get them all in there. So I don't take a ton of notes so I don't overwhelm myself. But I think there are people that do take a lot of notes and that is helpful for them. So
Yeah, I have an iPad that I've had for since like college that I just download the slide because they'll post PDFs of the slides and the slides themselves before each lecture. So like the night before, I would just down or like that morning before class started, I would just get to class and download the slides, and I would just kind of write, scribble notes throughout to I don't know, think that I was doing something. Sometimes I don't know if sometimes I read what I write, but I take notes, I highlight over the slides. But that's what I do. And I don't know if Lauren does anything different or she just,
I'm not a notes person. I have them on my iPad just to like be looking, and I honestly don't write anything down. I feel like it's helpful for me to just listen and then apply it later. But
yeah. But I mean, I know people who take like paper notes. One of my friends takes paper notes on a paper notebook with a pencil. And um, I have one friend who just kind of like sits there and just doesn't even have anything out and just sits there. And that might be you too. So, yes. Yeah.
to Jason's question about increased workload compared to undergrad, I would say a few things. One of the things that has helped me focus when I need to focus and when I need to study and having a big workload is kind of making sure that my personal life is as decluttered as possible, meaning having my house clean because my space is important to me and making sure I'm still doing the disciplines in my life that keep me running as a human, help me then be successful in school with the higher workload. And I would also say maybe just a point of optimism about the higher workload is med school is a lot harder for me, obviously, than undergrad, but I had a non-traditional kind of not hard science major in undergrad. And then when I got here, I actually realized, oh my goodness, I literally love everything that I'm learning. And so it almost made the workload easier because I was in college and I didn't love in the same way that I love this material. And so the workload seemed more of a burden, if that makes sense. So that's just a point of maybe some optimism that you might feel that way too. And I think you just have to time manage. I don't know what Robert and Lauren have to say about it.
I do think
Yeah, I think
it's
the
just a
workload.
slightly different, sorry,
No, go ahead.
it's a slightly different setup than college, right? Like in college, you're usually taking like four classes and they're all going on at the same time. So class A is busy, but class B is not doing so much. And so you're trying to balance all four of those. You really, for the most part, and Palm has its own things that you're doing, but those are not generally very taxing. So really, you're focusing on one class at a time, but it's going really fast. So it's less to me the workload and more the pace, maybe sometimes that is a bit different. So sorry,
Yeah,
go ahead,
it's
Robert.
exactly what I was gonna say. Is that like I felt like I don't know if the workload is more, it's just that's what I was saying. Like I was an English major, I was a non-traditional major, and so what I found difficult in college was like going from my, I don't know, Paradise Lost John Milton class straight into biochemistry. And so in medical school, I don't have that issue because everything I'm learning is connected in some way. So when we have one day of lectures about anesthesia and like the mechanism of actions of anesthesia drugs. And the next day, we're learning about these diseases and like how neurons synapse and the neurotransmitters that are being used, they connect. You're like, oh, wait, this drug works on this neurotransmitter. And this is what, so things connect where there's kind of like everything is working together with a fast pace, albeit, but everything works together. So when you're studying one lecture, you're subconsciously studying like all of your past lectures to some degree, where they're all kind of connected. And then things, and that's what kind of I think med school kind of gets you excited about is that when you're studying one thing, sometimes random things will click from other lectures. Like, and that's like the aha moment that I never really had in college because studying for biochemistry was going to help me understand, um, I don't know, Shakespeare, but in medical school, studying Parkinson's disease is going to help you learn more about, I don't know, whatever, like an anesthesia drug. It might help you, like, it might click something that you weren't really that tightly grasping on previously, but then somehow in your new lecture it does. So that's something that I think med school is set up geared well for.
Lauren, do you want to talk a little bit about shadowing at the Northwest campus?
Absolutely, yes. So one of the main differences that I'm sure you guys are all aware of with the Northwest campus versus the main campus is since we're not affiliated with a hospital that has as many residents, a lot of the shadowing is a lot more with direct attendings. From my experience, it's been very easy to get shadowing. A lot of times I will either ask our administration that we know very, very well because they're right with us all the time. If they have any contacts, Dr. Spallin, who is moving down to Little Rock, and Dr. Stone, or yeah, Dr. Stone will take his place. Always has somebody if you want to see something ready for you in the works. We have required palm shadowing on both campuses, and they will pair you with a preceptor. So I put in my preference for specialty, and they found me someone who was a recent Northwest grad. He's been great, and I've reached out to him several times afterwards. So I don't think it's very different from being at the UAMS main campus. You can really see anything you want to see from either location. And then as far as like how the workload changed, I would say something in addition to what Robert and Kate said. I felt like for me, it was a lot easier because to balance med school because I knew it was expected of me as far as knowledge goes. I felt like there were some classes in undergrad where I was like, I don't even know what this professor is expecting, but I did feel like, at least in med school, because there are so many like third-party resources and national resources, I knew exactly what content I needed to know. It was coming at you like a fire hose, but you do know at least what you're kind of looking for. So I do feel like that is a major benefit and makes it a lot easier to manage. And then,
Yeah.
do you want us to go through TBLs and how that works? Or is that something you want to cover in
I've
orientation?
just noticed that as we're touring, a lot of people have never encountered that before, and so I've had quite a few questions about it. And so I was just, from your standpoint, maybe it would be a good way to explain it real quickly.
Sure. I can talk about it first. So basically, we have two types of quizzes in med school. There's PIs and TBLs. TBLs are the ones that you use a lot more at the beginning, so those are probably more important and what you've heard about more. You get assigned a group for your TBLs. It's usually about 5 students, I think, for us. Essentially, what you'll do is you'll take the 10 question quiz on your own first, like everybody's quiet, you're answering it for yourself. And then you get a second chance at those exact same 10 questions, but the second time you get to talk with your team. That's what TBL stands for, team-based learning. So you talk with your team, the 5 people that you're assigned to, they stay the same all year. I'm really sad mine is changing, but that just means I get to work with new people, which will be great. But you do become really close with your group. And then essentially you get a second chance at all of those questions. And then your score, you both are scored for you. So you get your individual score and then you also get your team score. I feel like it's really helped my learning because even if I got a question right the first time, I might not have understood like the mechanism or like the other pathologies, or sometimes there'll be an answer choice where I'm curious like what the question would have needed to say for that to be the correct answer. And I do feel like learning in a group kind of helps a lot with that. So yeah, I don't know. Do you guys have anything to chime in about that?
Yeah, TBL is different from your anatomy group. So, which I kind of liked. It's like you get two fresh new groups of people that you've never met before. Hope maybe, I don't know, maybe you went to high school or college with these people, but pretty unlikely. It's like new groups of people. And so like automatically you have at least 10 or 11 people that you've never met before. So you can talk and meet and get to know these people. And so I think it's nice that they're two separate groups. And TBL is like the entire year. So anatomy groups end after anatomy. And TBL groups will continue as you have more TBLs. I have a photo in here of my TBL, which we're all dressed up for a sim lab. And so down the second from the right is my TBL. We got really close, and actually something about our TBL is that every TBL we had a theme. We did what's it, JC Penney's Christmas cards, where we went and did the awkward family photos. And so we gave Christmas cards to every group, every TBL, and we brought them to the office, College of Medicine. But every TBL, my TBL dressed for a certain theme. And so we did Phineas and Ferb, Scooby-Doo, we did plaid, we did cowboy tuxedos, which is like where you wear all denim or something. Canadian tux, all denim. We would like pick a color. One day we were all like kind of like rock heads. Like I was wearing a heavy metal t-shirt and we're all like rocking out. We did a bunch of themes. And so we kind of did as a joke because our table was smack dab in the center of the room. And so like the first week we were like everyone just looks at us. The whole TBL, when people are looking at the podium, they're looking at us right in front. And so we were like, well, gotta make ourselves a show. So we kind of just dressed up for every TBL. And so that was something about us that was kind of fun. But TBL you get really close with, and I love my TBL, and I'm kind of sad I'm missing them, but it's okay because
I would kind of going back to what Robert was saying about making friends and like getting to know different groups of people. I started med school. I went to Hendrix, and I had a core group of people who also were from Hendrix who were starting med school. And I had known them for 4 years, so it was definitely comfortable to just kind of fall into that group of people that I had already known. I think Robert came from out of state school, although he is from Arkansas originally. I think Kate, you're also from out of state, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Lauren, I'm not sure. Sorry. Are you also from out of state?
Yes, yeah.
Yes. So, there definitely be some people who come into the class who don't know anybody. But I really, even if you're coming from U of A or Hendrix or UCA or somewhere where you already have like a little cohort, it is really helpful, I think, for you to try and kind of to push the envelope and make friends outside of that little core group, because definitely I still love my little Hendrix group that I came with, but I made some other incredible friendships who maybe studied a little bit more the way I studied, so we could have more yeah, we were able to kind of help each other a little bit more. So even if you're coming from a place where you're going to have a little group who you already know, try to move outside of that group and get to know a lot of people.
Does anyone have any last questions?
That's my mom advice coming in. Sorry, and also sorry to Lauren for making you change teams.
That's okay. I love everybody in my class. I'm excited to work with new people.
It'll be great. It'll be great.
It'll be good. For that last question about Anki, this is gonna come out in the Google Drive we send out. That Reagan, who's kind of working on it over the summer, has been working on to get it set up for y'all's class. Um, there's a deck that is pre-made that we use that's connected to every lecture that I used. So we have in-house decks because the first kind of semester you're taking in-house exams. So you can kind of like use those in-house cards that are cards like just for anatomy, where the exams aren't standardized like NBME, which we're going to talk to you a lot more about. So don't fret about this. But there's in-house exam card decks, and then there's also an On King deck that you can download that is like specifically On King card, which is like a specific person who made a bunch of cards for step one and step two, that are like linked to every lecture. So like after a lecture, you can open up those cards and just study that information. Um, which I don't know if Lauren has any like other things about Anki.
I didn't make any of my own cards. I used all pre-made decks. Like Robert said, there are some decks that students from previous years have used the professor's direct slides to make flashcards already, and then others that third-party resources are linked to. Yeah, I didn't make any of my own cards or really take notes. That just wasn't something that I felt like was worth my time personally because that wasn't how I learned. But if you learn that way, that's great.
Yeah, I know some people who made their own decks for anatomy and for the next class after, and they did really well. So if you like to make your own cards, then to make your own cards. Let's go. Yeah, of course.
All right, guys. I think we are out of
Okay, wait, I
time.
have one more thing. I'm sorry.
Okay,
So,
that's okay. My computer tells me it's going to restart. So if I disappear, it's all you, Jen.
okay. Just quickly, in the next week, I will be sending a link out to a survey. It's the Lassie survey, which is it kind of tells us how you study and your strengths and weaknesses. We're sending it out a little bit earlier this year because the learning resource specialist would like to meet with each one of you and kind of go over your results and talk about study tips. And so they're going to want to schedule those for July and August if possible. So they'll have online links where you can meet with them via Teams or Zoom. So if y'all could complete those when you get the survey link, I would really appreciate it. I think that's it. Yeah.
So I will say, and there's only 33 of you on this Zoom, less than that because some of that is us actually. But we'll send out a message with this too. But I had some of the M2s give us some feedback that they were like, we didn't know what that was going to be used for, and it just felt kind of weird, the questions that were being asked. So it really is only going to be used with the learning specialist to kind of say, okay, well, I'm going to use you as an example, Robert. It looks like Robert it's questions about how you study and things that you think are your strengths with studying and things that you think that are weaknesses. So yeah, Jen says she'll send out more information about it when we send it out. But it may say for Robert that he has some time management issues. And so we don't do anything with that unless Robert comes to the learning specialist and was like, I'm having some trouble in molecules to cells. How can I do better? And they pull out this Lassie and are like, oh, on this it said you felt like you were having some trouble with your time management. How can we help you with that? So there's nothing, it's not saved under your name. It's not anything that we're using to judge you on or anything like that. It's just to help people if they're having some academic difficulties. Also, when I started this job 2 years ago and people started talking about the Lassie, I was like, where's the doc? I need a doc. So, but it's not a doc. All right. Okay. My computer really does. It's giving me the 5 minute warning that it's about to restart for some reason. So I think we will wrap it up for now, guys. We'll have our friends and family Zoom next in a couple of weeks. Thank you to Robert and Kate and Lauren. We really appreciate y'all. And we will enjoy your summer. Stay cool. We'll see y'all later.
Thank you.